Hi everyone, I'm Victoria and I'm co-founder of Book Edibles. We make edible flowers for desserts. Today we'll talk about what you really need to start off piping flowers, whether they're buttercream flowers or zephyr flowers. Basically, this is what we had to buy to start off the business. A bunch of things we didn't include in this list just because we assume that pretty much everybody has it on their kitchen. If no, then you'll adjust accordingly. We're just talking about the very basic things that you need to start off piping flowers. It's not even like baking. The very first thing that you need, this is my personal favorite, I can't live without it, and my husband got it for me. That's a standing mixer. I'm a fancy girl, so I got SMAG. Overall, you don't need such an expensive standing mixer. Currently, if you look at the pricing of standing mixers, you can find them as low as $70, and then there's no ceiling basically. This version of D&G design is like $1,700. So if you like that, sure, nobody stops you from getting it. But we're talking about basic functionality. That's what's important here. I wouldn't recommend to get you anything less than 5 quarts mixing bowl. In the description of this video, you'll find various links for different standing mixers that we recommend. We really love it. Next one is spatulas. I believe that every single baker has their own set that he prefers. I have the whole range and the whole theory of how to use them. For instance, this is for large volumes, obviously, of buttercream. You can start with just a set of spatulas, nothing too fancy, and just see what really works for you. Because at some point you will kind of feel the urge for something let's say a longer handle, because when you work with hot syrup a lot, you need this handle, otherwise you kind of risk of burning your arm. Just stuff like that. Again, you'll learn it as you start doing it, but to start off, having a set of 5 or 6 spatulas is enough. I believe it's around $10 to $15 on Amazon. Again, we have a link, so check it out. That's pretty simple stuff. What you probably don't need to buy and have in your kitchen, but this is something we're going to show you what we use and find it particularly comfortable to use, is those kind of bowls. Just pay attention to the shape of the bowl. You see it's kind of on the deeper side and round. It's not massive though. So I find it super convenient when we make zephyr flowers, because you use quite a lot of mixture, so you need a voluminous bowl. Because with the smaller ones, I've noticed that once you put color and you start really vigorously mix it, then the mixture could be all over the place and on your arms and off the bowl. You don't want that. Silicone mats. Again, super simple thing. We have different ones. This is my personal favorite. You see, it's pretty massive. Got it from IKEA. This medium size silicone mat regulates also, tells us how much flowers we're going to produce. So when I make one mixture of zephyr, this mat holds exactly 1 set of tulips. That helps you to keep track how many flowers you need for a certain arrangement, and it's just very convenient to store. Also, you can find more details in our handbook. The link is provided in the description. It's really affordable. If it's easy for you, you can just print it out and kind of follow the steps and see the sizes and other little tips that we put in there. Another good mat, actually, I don't have it right away. Let me pull it out for you. It's a smaller mat, but it's good. You see it has those circles. So those are macaroons mats, and they're good when you do swirls of zephyr. So it dictates your size of zephyr. So it's very convenient. So they all uniform. Again, once you start practice and do that a lot, you won't need these circles probably. You'll just do it by heart. But in the beginning, that's super helpful. Edibles is all about natural flavors, natural colors. We try to avoid artificial ingredients. However, to achieve the visual aspect of what we want, we do use colors. We don't use them a lot. And once you look at our lessons, how we make the flowers, you'll see that we don't really overpower our flowers with the coloring. So far, we discovered that Wilton ones, their icing colors are really good. And they're good because they mix well, they absorb well by zephyr mixture, and really the colors themselves so well developed that by mixing them, you can achieve basically any color you want. Yeah, they're really fun to work with, and we have some tips and tricks, how to work with them. And down the road, again, we'll record another lesson particularly dedicated to colors, because it's a really fun and interesting thing of working with. And I personally love it. So it's like a creative force behind it. Another super important thing, if you decided to start piping flowers like we did once and want to succeed in it, so it's piping bags. In the beginning, it wasn't clear for me what kind of piping bags to get and that there was any difference at all. I understood there were disposable ones and there were piping bags that you can wash and use them again. And both, of course, are valuable and they have their advantages. However, for zefir and for buttercream, we highly recommend this type of piping bags. So if you look at them, and I'll give you like a tip to look at them online, you need to look for this kind of like texture with those little dots. And those are thin piping bags. Sometimes in the description you cannot find it, or truthfully, I never could find it. So I had to kind of like look, like enlarge, zoom in, and look at the texture of it. Because when I was looking at tutorials and somebody was working with icing, like, cookies decoration, royal icing, that's what they use. And the reason for that is that once you, let's say, you don't use any piping tips, you just like cut a tip and it gives you like a perfectly round piping. Very nice. For exquisite little details, this is super important. And additionally, when you, let's say, work with piping zephyr flowers or buttercream flowers as well, it makes it easier for you. So you don't have to like squeeze it so hard, because overall this piping bag is soft. So again, for me, that was like a real discovery. So I'm genuinely sharing it with you because I believe it's super important. We provided the link in the description, and I believe there is a set that we buy. We normally buy in bulks because we use them a lot, like 400, 500. And to start off, you can just get a bulk of 100. That would be enough. And I believe they're fairly inexpensive, like $10 for 100 of them. Also super important, if you start piping flowers, if you decided you're gonna do that and you want them to look really nice, and it's just to have basic nails. They sell in sets, and luckily, again, when we started about a year ago, even more than that, they didn't sell those bricks online. I couldn't find them. So I had to order them from somebody I know basically to make it for me. And now they sell them on Amazon, which is perfect. And you don't need many. I have 2 of those for now, but start with 1. Again, we found a link for you that has everything you need there for this kind of like things for piping the flowers. So it has a little holder for your nail. It has different size nails. And also in those type of sets, they have scissors. So they have to be plastic scissors. And you see, I have a kind of like a flat foundation of it that holds the flower. I like them flat. Some of them are more thin. For buttercream, normally people use thin flowers because our specialty is more zefir. Although we also do a lot of buttercream flowers, but zefir was our like first love. So we got the flat ones. They're really convenient to use. What to look into this kind of scissors. So just look that they are soft enough. This is more tough than this one. I prefer like this one personally because it's softer. Because once you put down the flower, you need to make sure that it's really easy to like squeeze it out from the bottom of the flower. Again, we'll show it to you once we go into the teaching you how to pipe the flowers. Okay. Another thing too you might need to make the flowers is this. This is what I discovered called scribble needle. It's for regular people, for normal people. I would say it looks pretty useless unless there is a special use, and maybe like somebody can use it for their iPhone and stuff to get the SIM card out. But what we use it for is for coloring. So you see those colors, again, going back to Wilton. They're nice, but it's very difficult to get them out unless you all like get messy, and like your hands get dirty. So yeah, this is like a super convenient way of like getting your colors out and also regulating how much you put in. So highly recommend to get that. Will save you time and also like a brain power, to think, okay, what can I use to get the colors out of it? And it's really easy to wash. You see how I have this little like a glass jar. So I just pour water in it and wash them as I go. So this is like super convenient to use as well. And I put here as a reminder to tell you that you will need a regular hand mixer, but we don't really like, elaborate here because probably most of people in their kitchens have already a hand mixer. Just be prepared that you might and you will need to use this. Let's move on. What else? If you're looking to make buttercream flowers, this part is not going to be that important for you. But if you would like to make zefir flowers like we do, then this is important, and that's called immersion blender. We got ours from Sur La Table. Again, this is not something super fancy, it just has to work properly because you need it to make different purees, because that's the foundation of zefir. Again, fine, maybe you already have one and you don't need to buy that. We needed to buy that because for some reason I never used it before. All right, moving on to this thing. That's a brand new box because I just ran off the gloves. This is gloves. So some people really recommend to use them for the sake of cleanliness, for the sake of hygiene. And truthfully, a lot of chefs think that that's not the case. You just need to wash your hands. And a lot of chefs just like feeling their food and stuff. I think it's normal. Both are acceptable. We use gloves first because of hygiene, because I believe that that's important. And second, because it's actually very convenient when you work with buttercream or zefir mixture, because otherwise your hands get either greasy or sticky. Another part of it is when you hold a piping bag, and it's tricky to learn because it takes some time and practice, to learn how to hold it that it's comfortable for you. You kind of hold it here, and then it may slide. Once you put the cream in it, it starts sliding off your hand. And that's not very convenient. But gloves really help, provides you like a tension, so they stick there and it doesn't go anywhere, the piping bag. So I think that's pretty cool tip. You need gloves because it gets uncomfortable on your hands when you sugar powder. And I'm okay, I love touching the flowers, but yeah, I know that a lot of people would probably find it uncomfortable. So again, gloves are really good. So you need to put your hair away, because your high-end clients look so pretty. Every time I look at myself, my husband loves it. Yeah, just kidding. No, but you have to, unfortunately. I don't think that you want your clients to find any of your hair in your product. The good news is that you can make them pretty, like we like purple or pink, and again, there's a link for you in the description of this video. This is, I would say, universal for whatever you make or bake. Cupcakes also, buttercream flowers, you need to store them somewhere. So we use those boxes. This is a plastic box. You see there's some zefir in it. So the plastic boxes could be any size, shape, color, whatever you prefer. I would just say the only thing to pay attention to is that they have to be food grade. That's it. I believe this is 14 inches by 6 by 3. So you will need some height. That's definitely a tip here. So go for something that is on the taller side, at least 3 inches tall. Another thing, actually speaking right now to you, I figured out that I forgot something that was important when we talked about flour, sugar powder, and you need some brushes. These are our favorite brushes. So this one is good overall for tulips and for peonies. And this one is perfect for roses, because roses are a kind of a pain in the butt to brush, but this brush does it perfectly. And again, look for food grade, because those brushes, they particularly sell them for confectionery chefs, for cooking basically. Very last thing, very important, of course, it's piping tips. Let me show you something. Hold on. Let me show you something. To find my perfect piping tips, this is how much piping tips I had to buy. Piping tips, piping tips, piping tips, piping tips, piping tips. Guess what? Piping tips. I'm not joking. As you just saw, the piping tips could be really overwhelming. And right now, we kind of want to break it down a little bit for you by the flowers. And if it's too much for you still, then you can just skip this part and go get a handbook and just pick the flower that you want to start with, and you'll see the description of the piping tips you need, and of course, how to use them for that particular flower. Let's separate a little bit buttercream and zefir. Overall tip is that for buttercreams, you need thinner piping tips. For zefir, they have to be thicker. And by thin or thick, I mean the piping tip, nozzle itself. That's where the buttercream and the zefir comes out. I would just speak about the numbers right now and what they do, opposed how you can work with them, because each number and each brand is different, and then you kind of need to establish your own range of which one you prefer for which flower. So let's say peonies is a super popular flower we sell. My favorite piping tip for that is Wilton 123. So as you can see here, I'll explain why, and of course we provide the link. It's because here on the thinner part, it's a kind of on the thicker side. I hope that's clear. On the thinner part, it's on the thicker side. It doesn't rip your flower. If you want to flower your petals of your peonies to come out smooth, you need it to be thicker. Because if you compare other brands, And this is a gem. You'll see the difference because this one is thinner. That will be good for buttercream though. But then for buttercream, I would suggest that you get a smaller one overall. So this is 123 again. Good for peonies, for zefir peonies. And for instance, anything between 120 and 122 is better for buttercream because they're thinner and they're smaller overall. And again, general idea is like the smaller the number, the smaller the piping tip. And it's pretty easy to compare those. We put the details in the description and we put more details in the handbook. So if you want to really figure that out in the beginning, so just like click on the link and get our handbook. We talked about peonies, but those type of piping tips you see with this pattern, they work for roses. I see a lot of people like making roses with them, and we'll try that. It's just if you want to make a peony with a rose piping tip, that would be challenging, but you can make a rose using peonies piping tip. Rose is super basic. To start off, I would recommend to get 125 or 127 piping tip. My favorite is 128. So the reason why I recommend to start off with 125 or 127 is because they're smaller. You can tell that 128 is quite big. Most of my piping tips, they're all adjusted. They're not like purely as they come from the store, you know. But to start off, it's okay. You don't have to like think about it too hard. So I'm giving you the numbers that will help you to get comfortable with it and then figure out how you prefer your petals, like thinner or thicker, you know, like you want them this shape or that shape. Two piping tips that I think that are important in the collection for buttercream. They are thin, that's why. 124K, 125K, 126K. So those are for thin piping. And they're great for the middles, let's say for Austin roses. You see, I thickened it a little bit because I work with zephyr with this one, and otherwise it's too thin for zephyr. And here also in the description, what's important is that we state the brands, because for each piping tip, different brands gives you like a different tip. The numbers are the same. And especially a good example is plain petal, like I showed you 125 or 127. This is Wilton. If you look at, let's say, Ateco, although it's the same manufacturers we discovered, they're all produced in Korea, but anyways, it's different shape. Ateco, they do kind of like a triangle shape, and this one is more round. So I would recommend to start with more round. It's easier to handle, whether it's buttercream or zephyr. 1M, super basic piping tip, creates like perfect unpiped or like unhand piped roses. One swirl and you're done. But it's really looking pretty, and I love them personally. We do them a lot, and like our customers love them, everybody loves them. Also people who use those ones, they also recommend 2Ds. I use it rarely. It gives like a slightly different outcome, but overall they're similar. Again, maybe it's worth to get both and just to try which one works better for you. Another flower, we don't do it a lot, or maybe we don't do it enough. However, there are a lot of requests overall in the piping world, I would say, for chrysanthemums. And that's why it's worth to try at least, you know, whether you like this flower or not. And this is the piping tips for that. That's 79 and 80. They're slightly different in the size and shape, produced by Wilton. So again, just like pick whatever you prefer. Another piping tip that you definitely cannot live without is 352. That's a basic leaf piping tip. Yeah, and it's so simple. You see, it just has this like little V shape here. Could be like roses leaves are especially popular, but you can manage like peonies leaves or like other ones. Just like requires a little bit of experience, you know, and you'll get there once you practice, definitely. This kind of piping tip that gives you confidence that you can definitely make it because it's easy, you know. Another piping tip is 104 or 103. Those are for small flowers. They're perfect for, again, for cakes, for little details on your cupcakes. We use them for smaller flowers. We make this like baby shower centerpieces, bassinets, and like we need sometimes smaller flowers to kind of like fill the gaps. So that's what it works perfectly. And for apple blossoms, they work perfectly. And that's normally when you start courses, that's where they start teaching you to do is apple blossom, because it's like super basic, but it allows you, like kind of gives you a feeling of like how your hand's supposed to work in order to make flowers nicely. Plain tip, just the whole tip. It's good for the details of the flowers, you know, like if you need to write something on the cake, for instance, or like cupcake, that's really good. And here's the final set of piping tips we have here. That's called Russian piping tips. Again, there are various sets online, and it's worth trying, definitely. They're fun. They are a pattern, you know, it's like one squeeze and you get a pattern. One squeeze and you have a flower. Okay, guys, so that was a breakdown of A basic beginner set to start making flowers, piping flowers, I think. Whether they're buttercream flowers, zephyr flowers, probably some other flowers. In the description, again, you find the link to our handbook. If you don't want to watch this video a million hundred times, you don't have to. Just look at the handbook and it gives you the list of everything you need. Plus, it gives you like a little tips we're talking about for how to use pretty much every single thing we're talking about here. And additionally, if you'd like to support us and help us to keep making those videos for you, please use one of our affiliated links to buy whatever you decide to purchase from this list, whatever you need. If not, that's totally fine. We're still happy to do it for you. Hopefully we'll be able to. So please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, me and my partner are very happy to answer those questions to the best of our capacity and mental limits of whatever intellectual abilities.
To sum it up, here's a full list of what you need to start piping flowers, with the approximate total cost of $230. Again, depending on your plans, ambitions, and budget, you can always adjust accordingly. That's what worked for me and the Bouquetables team.